UFOs and alien abductions. And yeah, man, I'm excited to talk about this one. We see nowadays, like I was saying, in Mexico and Peru, they apparently have found findings of extraterrestrial entities. I strongly believe they're fake, but what the big part of it is that they're sowing seeds into the minds of the people. So it goes beyond whether it's real or not with certain things. It's the message that's getting across. It's the preparing of people with these truths, lies, half truth, half lies. Um, and so we see that again. We brought up deception the last video. Again, this just goes to the fact that the main thing is deception, deceiving. And at this moment of time, you're seeing people being prepared to be under a grand delusion. Yes, it's interesting with what's going on, the technologies they have. I believe very strongly they've had technologies decades. What was it? One special forces soldier um, said 70 years. So whatever we have now was 70 years, 70 years old. And it's quite fascinating. And I believe that this is the case. Why the technology we don't have it now is because of culture. You prepare the culture with the technology over time so it doesn't overwhelm people, but also because it's all a part of that deception. It does take multiple generations to really get people into a major direction that you want it to go into. And Kim, what are your thoughts? UFOs, alien abductions. Do you have anything to say about it?
Yeah. Ultimately, I think that everything that we see from holy angels visiting people to aliens to UFOs to like ghosts, which I believe are also demons because I believe deeply that the dead are asleep and rest until the resurrection, until the coming of Jesus. But anyways, I believe that everything is really just angels basically kind of shape shifting and deceiving people into thinking that there's all these different things out there when really it's just fallen angels growing the deception and planting so many different confusions everywhere. Um, and yeah, and I think Satan's been working for a long time because he knows the end. He knows that Jesus is going to come in the heaven and like it's so weird and interesting when you hear that the Vatican has like the strongest telescope there is, and its name is Lucifer, because like, what are they looking for? Like, Satan's watching the heavens because this is the place that was his domain and kingdom after Adam and Eve fell, and he is looking to protect it. And you see all these movies and stuff coming out that are talking about like doomsday and Armageddon, and we need to save ourselves. There's going to be this alien force that's going to come and get us, and we need to protect ourselves from it. And if you think about it, fallen angels are aliens in a way because they're not human. They're from a different dimension of time and a different existence, and then a foreign, and Satan's trying to say, oh, we're aliens. It's partial truth because he likes to do that. And then say that, you know, he knows that Jesus is coming, but he wants us to think that a threat is coming. And to Satan and those who deny God, to them it is a threat. Jesus is going to come to end their life, which is the ploy that Satan wants us to believe. He wants us to believe that God is the monster, God is the enemy, when he's the one deceiving everyone, but we're the ones buying his lies. So I think ultimately at the end of the day, like, you can go down a million rabbit holes, and I promise every rabbit hole will eventually lead you back to the great controversy. It'll lead you back to Jesus and Satan. The Bible will come in somewhere in your journeys, and you'll be like, why does this have anything to do with the Bible? Why does this story why is this story like some weird makeshift version of a Bible story? Like, it's weird how everything starts to, and even with all the new AI that's out, you can go and ask like the AI questions. Like, someone wasn't telling me, I watched something where someone was talking about, they asked AI how it felt about Satan. And it was like, he's okay. And then asked AI how it felt about Lucifer. And it's like, oh, I love Lucifer. And then asked AI how it felt about Jesus, and like just like horribly negative, cruel comments. And I think back to me back when I was judging Jesus before he saved me, and some of the jokes that I made about him, and some of the things with my friends that I thought was funny, because I hated religion. I hated all of it, and I wanted nothing to do with God. And I didn't know. And that's why Jesus forgives us, is because like we don't know. We're deceived. We're born into this world that is upside down. But it's slavery. We're stuck in it. And as I went down the path with the Holy Spirit, I wasn't looking for health. I just wanted to be closer to God. And when you let the Holy Spirit lead your life, it leads you down a path of health. And then all of a sudden you start to realize, wait a minute, I'm healthy. And that was never even a goal of mine. But man, it's awesome. There's nothing more exciting than being healthy, because healthy means that you're alive. And lies they're such a trap. Once you start to become freed from them, it's like an obsession. Like, I want to keep finding the lies that I know, because I don't want to be in them anymore. With Elijah, right? Elijah went and called people, stop worshiping Baal. And Baal is a very similar story to the Jesus story, right? Stop worshiping Baal, worship God. And the end time call of the three angels' message is worship God, don't worship the beast, right? And then Jesus talks in Matthew 24 how false prophets or Satan coming as Jesus, or however it's going to happen, is going to have the power to call fire down from heaven. And in the Elijah story, Elijah called fire down from heaven, and it was a sure sign of God. So Satan's power has grown in some way, and he's figured out a way to call fire down from heaven to where it seems like he has the power of God. And I think a lot of the UFO and the researching and all the stuff that's happening in that realm is Satan trying to build his war and army in some fantasy idea that he can kill God again. Satan got him at the cross, and he thinks that there's some way, some atomic bomb, something that could actually save him from what's coming. And I think that's ultimately what it is. And he wants our power, because he wants to be God. And the more he can deceive us, the more power he has. But he could have the power of all creation and still not have the power of God, because they're infinitely far apart.
Keith, you're on. Do you have anything to say on the subject?
Well, for me, I'm not like I've heard some things about like alien abductions and things like that, but I never took them seriously. Area 51 and things like that. I've always considered that to be, something of a, like a myth or an urban legend or something like that. But there is something about the idea of aliens being a part of the bigger scheme in Satan's deception. I do see that. I do see how that's just part of the greater plan. Mm-hmm. And now, why is this kind of important? So this is I was listening to I listened to YouTube, people, especially this particular atheist, right? Who I like, listening to. His name is Sam Harris. I don't know if you heard of him. So Sam Harris is famous for doing talks and basically debunking Christianity as a logical thing. You shouldn't believe in Christianity because he tries to use logic and science. Anyway, one of the things that he pointed out was that if you take a pencil to the night sky and you put it up, and he says, if the tip of your pencil, if you put it up to the night sky, right, that just the tip of the pencil will cover up some million stars right there, something like that. That's how many stars just the tip of your pencil would cover if you were to take a telescope and then look at the area where it covers it, and you will discover there you have at least 1 million stars covered up in that one small tiny space. So the idea of aliens makes sense, is that, hey, we're only a tiny speck, and how can we, it doesn't make sense that we are only the only lives in this vast universe, right? He's not wrong. But the idea of aliens coming in and abducting people, that's a completely different thing, So whereas the idea that there's other life in the universe makes sense, right? This thing about having aliens come in and studying human beings and all these things and whatnot, that's where it begins to become a little bit, going off the rails. Now, here's another thing too. You probably guys know about this. That the pyramids and things like the Stonehenge and things like that could have been built with the technology of the day, right? So Stonehenge is interesting because Stonehenge is the rocks that are built around. You know what that is? It's just these rocks that are put in a circle and they're like mounted on top of each other. The rocks that make up Stonehenge are not endemic of that area, of that region. The material, the rocks actually are some like couple hundred miles away, down in Scotland, I believe, or way below, far away from the region where it was at. And given the technology of the day, you could have hauled those huge boulders up, let alone carry them by hand all the way to the site where it was. So the reason it had to have been like aliens with high intelligence to have created that. But they're not wrong, actually, because the aliens that did that were demon spirits that moved the rocks over to the place of worship that they did that. But you will never find that in any book. What you will find is that it's strange that the material that it came from, and it's very interesting that they were able to do that without the technology that was available at the time. So it had to have been aliens, like from outer space who helped them. But it is aliens, but it's not the aliens that they're thinking of. So just as Kim pointed out. So in that aspect, it is actually, the worship of demons is not new. It's as old as, it's the reason why in the God had to destroy the people before the flood, because they were very much in touch with the spiritual side, and a lot of those things have been destroyed, and the Bible doesn't go into detail about those things for a reason. But all of these things are coming back again. And it always follows when the nation begins to depart from the worship of the true God and begin to introduce and accept, the things the deceptions that keep them away from the true worship of the true God.
Yardaman, do you have anything to say?
I don't know much about aliens, but I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you guys think the people like Adam and Eve, from Adam and Eve until Noah, were they smarter than us, or were they, because I always think like they were way smarter because it was just like from God, like straight, not many generation before sin, but I feel like sin has affected men intelligence and knowledge. I don't know. Do you guys think they were way smarter than us, or are we smarter than them?
They
Um,
were extremely intelligent. They were taller, bigger, about 3 to 4 times bigger and taller than we are.
mhm.
They had bigger minds. They didn't have to write things down. Doesn't mean that they didn't,
Right.
but they didn't need to because their minds were so beautiful and
Develop.
yeah, developed. And
Their memory capacity.
exactly.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, they Adam and Eve were in the garden of God. They partook in the fruit of the tree of life. You know, they were at their prime, unfortunately, affected by sin, but they were definitely more intelligent. And you can see that there's evidence of that because you have, like with fossils, giant insects and giant creatures because of the
Mhm.
CO2 that was produced back then, right? So it's just more
Mhm.
evidence that humans were bigger, and the technology that you find with these archaeological findings, this what's it called? What's it's called? Cyclopean masonry. Like we can't create these certain edifices, and so they were extremely intelligent, very powerful, and you can there have been giants throughout history, and so you can see with genetic expression that humans were bigger back then.
Yeah.
Even to I don't know if there's any giants on the face of the earth now, but yeah, humans were amazing. And
Yeah.
that's what's
So
terrifying.
I just gonna I agree. So I just gonna feel, because with science, they always believe like we evolved, like with we did not have a lot of tools, we couldn't make anything, we could not build anything. But with the Bible, when we look at the Bible, we can see that humans were way more intelligent back then than that we are right now. But just like the discovery of like those the pyramids or whatever they call. So I just felt like if those people were people, we're just trying to kind of name them alien, because if we tell that they are people, it'll be like saying something that's different than science, because science believe that we evolved from the like whatever what it was, and we
The
did not know
Neanderthal.
how to yeah, how to build stuff. So it'll be something that's different than we have today. Just the teaching will be probably different. It'll be like saying something that's different, since we did evolve to from something that could not make any tool that was like really fancy. But when we look at the Bible, we could see like people were way more intelligent than we are today.
Well, and
Hmm.
it's in harmony too with the construct of how life works. So like the original life was given when God, gave his breath to Adam, and since then, like all of life that has existed since the creation of Adam and Eve is a continuation from you know, that original beginning of life and the breath, and then in Eve it doesn't exactly say how he brought her to life, but it's probably the same. But also in our bodies it's the same. So like from birth we start out with the healthiest cells, like because our DNA it remakes itself, and over time, because of sin, and over
Yeah.
time humanity, because of sin, we age. And so like really humanity in general, like our bodies are aging because the cells, as they keep rebuilding themselves, the DNA and stuff like doesn't have everything it needs. And it's the same thing with humanity in general. That beginning life that came from God is aging. It's losing life, and that's why we need God, and it's because of sin, and we need to I've come to realize that God is love, and life is the circulation of love. Perfect health is dependent upon perfect circulation. And when we believe lies, it blocks circulation. It's just like when your heart starts to harden, like the artery starts to harden and the blood isn't pumping. So your body's getting the life that it needs. Sin does the same thing. It like that's why the heart hardens. That's why the effects of sin cause death over time, because sin like blocks the ability for life to flow. That's why when they offered the lamb, they bled out, because the circulation of life requires flow. So, anyways.
Some that came to my mind was humans are so degraded that if you look at a lot of these intelligent people like Thomas Edison, they were talking to spirits. They were into spiritism. The Nazis were into black magic, and they got a lot of their technologies like the Tiger Tank from worship of devils. And so it doesn't mean that they didn't do in the past, but it shows you that, like for us as God's people, we really rely on God. There's so much we don't understand. We forget things easily. And the same thing goes for our enemy, is that they really heavily rely on Satan for the technology that they have. Like there's no original idea with these people. And you can see that with their doctrines. Same thing with technology. Humans are completely degraded. And that's why it comes down to two things: those that turn off their brains and follow Satan, and those that open their minds to God and question reason. And God brings them into a higher reality, and we will have a new body and mind. And I'm just so excited about that. I mean, it's so cool. So cool.
Pete,
One,
Zach, can I say one more thing if we're moving off the alien topic?
no, please. Yeah, well, I just have,
To,
yeah, go ahead.
to Keith's, the I don't follow alien stuff that much either. I would like to hear from Zach on his stuff, but my husband follows it a bit, and from what I've seen, and I know a few other people that did, but from what I've seen, people that get into the alien stuff like get into it. They go looking for it. They open themselves to it. So I don't believe an alien abduction can just happen to where they have the ability to go and just grab anyone. But it makes sense with the way that Satan has been trying to dissect the human mind and body to control it. That alien abduction makes a lot of sense to me, in that it is demons going and taking people and going, because most alien abductions I've heard of, they're doing really horrific things. They say like what's happening to me was terrifying and excruciating, and it sounds really similar to like the mind control stuff that you shared with Kathy O'Brien. And I see, the more I look into things, looking back at Egypt, I don't know if I told you guys last time, did I tell you about the Eye of Horus?
I don't think
No.
So
yeah.
I was looking into Egyptian culture a little bit more, and the Eye of Horus, and our dollar bill that has the floating eye above the pyramid over an Egyptian pyramid, right?
Right.
But the
Incomplete.
Eye
Yeah.
of Horus was the sign of Horus, and Horus was the god that lived on earth, right? So the new pharaoh had Horus come in him, and I think that the Egyptians had weird coronation rituals that they called Horus down, and the coronation rituals allowed the pharaoh to become the new living god on earth, which is why in the Bible, when Moses went and said, "Let my people go," who is God that I should worship him? He literally believed that he was a god, and maybe he had a demon living in him, who can say, right? But anyways, the Eye of Horus was a symbol of Horus, and it was on all their stuff. And I saw this thing that shows that if you cut a human brain in half, the eye actually lines up inside the brain. The circle lines up with like the brain stem, and then the part that goes over it like goes into all the senses. And you look into pharmacia of ancient Egypt, and much of our pharmacy, like much of drugs and all that stuff, comes from ancient Egypt. And you look into this modern mind control that they're doing in babies and through like the the child trafficking and the horrible things they're doing to children. And Kathy O'Brien is a testament of what is happening. And they're going in and trying to hijack the brain. And you can go and watch things now where, like, one of the main dudes that's under Charles Schwab from the World Economic Forum is talking about how they can hack humans now, and that it was starting with our phones and things that are external, but the next goal is for it to go in and under the skin, which has already started through vaccinations. So, you know, like, all these things sound like crazy or whatever, but the more you look into them and the more you see that Satan has an agenda that's been happening for a long time, it's really rather simple. It all lines up and kind of goes back to the same root. And it's that Satan doesn't give a hoot about any human. He just wants power and control over them, and he's willing to do whatever he needs to dissect God's beautiful creation and destroy it and make it work to his advantage so that he can win or take everyone down with him.
It's fascinating. Yeah, mind control is a big part of it. And you know, with the alien abductions and whatnot, a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's just demons manifesting as such," or it's physical. I've come to the conclusion of this. Most alien abductees are trauma-based mind control slaves, traumatized through satanic ritual abuse and other programs like Program Monarch that still exist today, and they have screened memories of being abducted. And one of those main reasons why they do that is because those that are uh, causing such trauma, it makes them out to be like, oh, they're godlike figure, the aliens, you know, and whatnot. And so there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide. That's another conditioning, another program. The second one is, yes, demons are manifesting themselves as whatever they want. Aliens of like Nordics, insect-like creatures, reptilians. That is a reality as well. And the third one is that these advanced technologies have been around so long, and that they've created human animal hybrids, and they've created what you could say is alien grays. That and there's so much proof that there are actual physical abductions from aliens, that of physical grays and whatnot. But you know, they've had artificial intelligence and these robots that they could just create a robotoid of technology and flesh. And so I would say it's a matter of three. And ultimately, it is all to deceive, and it's also to collect DNA. A lot of these people that are into transhumanism, it's all about DNA, it's all about information, collecting data. Same thing when it comes to the human genome, collecting data, getting as much out of it as possible, creating monstrosities of all types that are in deep underground military bases and cities, used for horrific and selfish purposes. And yeah, that's the conclusion I've come into. I have a lot more research to do, but again, it goes back to deception and control, mind control.
I think
So,
it's funny too, really quick. I think it's funny that the reptilian thing stems, like, Satan came as a serpent and he ends up as a dragon. So people believing they evolved from some reptile, to me, makes sense that they evolved from Satan, and it just got convoluted somewhere. Sorry, that's it.
I remember, I don't know what it was. Remember watching a movie with Tom Cruise. What was it? Mission Impossible, where one of the things that they brought up was these masks. You put these masks on, and it would convert you to the person that they were trying to impersonate in, you know. And they would say, "Oh, that's just a Hollywood movie or whatever." But I actually heard that actually exists. That these things were out there. You know, it's not obviously known, but some of these movies kind of they kind of tell on themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and posting things that appear to be like fake, but there actually are things that they're actually working on. But then somebody told me that the reason why you saw them on the movies is because they actually have something better now. Isn't that something? So the deep fakes that they have created, right, that are now in pop culture as like movies or whatever, that people will like see them and think, oh, that's just fantasy or whatever. The reason why they're there is because they already have something better, right? That exists. That's, so now they're just showing you these things, in the movies or whatnot. And I thought that, obviously there's no way to verify this stuff, or at least not. I have no proof of this or whatever, but it kind of makes sense to me, so many things of things that I see in the movies or whatever actually are like based on reality, but they're a mask. So it's kind of like, to me, like more and more I see, it's like Satan is hiding in plain sight, so it basically shows you a little bit of what's going on in a way in movies or whatnot. But then behind the scenes, they're actually working on other stuff as well. So